Welcome to the Obvious Leadership Podcast, where we dive into practical leadership insights that are, well, obvious. Your hosts have walked the talk, and now they're sharing their knowledge, strategies, and advice. Let's jump into today's episode and explore the world of leadership with your hosts, Joey and Omar.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. We just had it was a hot day yesterday, man. So my kids love spending time outside, and my son, when I tell you that he can just be outside all day, he got tired of playing in the water. So instead of wanting to go inside, he just lay down in the grass next to the water and was just playing with the water with his hand. I'm like, bro, you got to go inside.
That's too much, man. Yeah, no, I stayed inside yesterday, man. I couldn't deal with that heat, man. So I just stayed inside.
Well, belated Happy Father's Day to you, brother.
Yes, sir. Happy Father's Day to you, man.
It's funny though, because so we were at my girl's family's home, one of our tios, one of our uncles, and he had some family show up, so we were just talking, and one of her cousins showed up, and he's kind of been like a wayward soul, right? He's been trying to find his like calling since I've known them.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and one of the things that we were talking about is like, and it's kind of a little bit off topic, right? But not about telling your kids not to go to college. And don't like, I'm not gonna lie, like I've told my girl with my kids, I'm not a fan of college. I went to college, I graduated, but the way things are now, like I'm not opposed if they want to take a break, travel, and explore and see what's actually out there before they commit to, yeah, I'm going to go to school in the US.
Yeah.
But what he meant wasn't don't tell kids not to go to college. It's don't tell kids not to go to college without having like some kind of plan set up for them where you've shown them like throughout their youth different things they could do from either trades or business opportunities, right? Don't just expect them to be 18 and then know how the world works.
Right.
And I mean, that correlates a lot with a lot of things that we've talked about, how you don't bring somebody on board, even if they're a seasoned veteran from a different industry or a different organization, you don't bring them on board and you expect them to know everything right off the bat. You have to have a plan to be able to guide them through where they can find their way, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just setting them up for failure.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, man, because I mean, the meta right now is you graduate high school and you go straight into college. But you know, and they try to do their best to get you a plan. But you know, and I think a lot of it's based on, you know, like these tests that you take and things like that, you know, and that kind of correlates to what we've talked about, right? You know, like just because you answer a certain way on those tests, you know, doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, hey, look, you have to go down this path. Which I feel like, you know, a lot of times when, you know, at that age, when you get the results, you're like, oh, well, this is what I got to do, you know, and that's the only thing I can do. And, you know, I feel like some people might be pigeonholed into doing, you know, certain courses at college and going down a route, going down a journey of education that may not necessarily be what's, you know, what they were meant to do.
Oh, yeah. Funny story with that. So I used to be a math major when I first started college, right? I was a computer science guy at first, but me and one of the professors got into it because he was like, you have to do this by the book. And I was like, okay, but if I was able to get your results with less code, why is this wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then I was like, all right, but I actually left college for a number of years and I worked in outside sales, and I decided, you know what, let me go back and finish and let me just get it because I only have less than a couple of years to go anyway. And to your point, when you're fresh and you're going in, most people don't have a plan of success, right? They don't actually know what they want. And it's something that they told me when I was starting off. Like, I know me in the class I went with anyway, at the school I was at, they're like, expect to not know your way. And you're probably not gonna know exactly what you want to do until about like maybe a year or two in. So don't, don't fret it. Most people will change their like their degree or their focus probably 2 or 3 times before they graduate. Um, and when I went back in, I didn't stay in the maths or anything, right? I switched to communications because I was doing sales, and I was like, what can I do to get a degree almost in like a sales? And this school didn't have like a business department that focused on selling. They had a business department that focused on marketing, but not selling.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, well, that's pretty
find your
interesting.
way.
Like I said, I think it correlates to a lot of things in life, man. Because honestly, anytime you start a new journey, you know, that's the plan is you can only plan as good as you think you think you know what you want, but you know, as you
Yep.
go along that journey, you tend to find out things that you wish you would have known at the beginning of that journey, right? And things would have gone a lot more smoother, or you would have done things a little bit differently. But the truth, the fact of the matter is that you do things to the best of your knowledge at that point in time, right?
Oh yeah, man. Think of it like as I know I can completely think of like different management positions that I was in or leadership roles I was in where it's like if I had known that earlier on, do you know how easier this would have been? Like this whole transition, whether it's like an actual leadership skill, um, or something within the organization that would just make things easier to like work with instead of like them holding it back and not telling you until like later down the road. Like that's not how it works.
I mean, honestly, man, like you think back to your first leadership position, you know what I mean? And you think about the things that you wanted to prioritize, and were trying to influence others and things like that, and you were doing it the way you thought was best. And I feel like a lot of leaders, maybe the newer leadership, that might tend to micromanage, right? Because they want their hands on everything, and that kind of ties back to our last episode. That you don't want to let things kind of grow on their own, and give people a little bit of of their own influence on some processes, or how to make things work. You kind of you want to hold things close to the chest, right? And make
Mhm.
them work your way, because everything, this is your first leadership position. You gotta prove yourself, you know what I mean? You gotta make sure you're firing on all cylinders. And you can't give anybody those reins, man. And it's tough, when I look back at my first um, leadership position, man. Like it was tough, man. Like I feel like the transition wasn't very smooth. I didn't really know how to handle like the position I took was actually a leadership position that like one of the guys got promoted within that store, so he was still in the building
Yeah.
with the team that I was taking over, that I had never worked with. I was coming new into the store. And the transition, just like, I didn't use that to my advantage. I think back now, I'm like, man, I should have been using that to my advantage instead of, trying to pull everybody back to me. You know what I mean? Like I should have been using his position already to help influence the people that was with me, man. And just,
Yeah.
looking back, like I said, it was painful. I got through it, and eventually I learned my way. But that's one of those things where I wish I had somebody to tell me, hey, look, maybe we need to calm down just a little bit, and let a little bit go. Try, stop trying to be so controlling. But
Yeah, and it's funny because you're essentially talking to salespeople wanting to get into leadership, right? And it's like as salespeople, they're trying to control the entire situation, and it's like, no, the best salespeople I know are like almost like jujitsu people, right? In a way, it's they learn the flow and they go with the ebbs and the webs of the flow. They
yeah,
don't try to be rigid. It's like you got a process, cool, but that process can change and it flows with how the conversation or the person you're talking with. And if you can translate that to a leadership role where you don't try to be rigid, you learn how to flow with things and you work with what you got, meaning kind of like to your point, if you have a leader in close proximity that was there before, that influence can cut down big time on your path to success as a leader and with the rest of the team seeing you as somebody who knows what they're doing, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, so like the analogy I used to use for my guys, for my sales guys was, you have to think that you're a comedian on a stage, right? And you're sitting there, you're telling jokes, right? But if you're not getting the the responses you want, obviously laughter, right? If you're not getting that kind of engagement, that person's not going to sit there going down his planned attack of jokes. You know what I mean? He's
Yep.
going to change it up and try to get some kind of reaction from the crowd and build off of that, right? That's the exact way that we have to treat sales management and most positions, I would say.
Oh yeah. And honestly, bro, that it goes back to my favorite quote, right? 60% of the time it works every time. And it's true, because I got a buddy back home who's a comedian. He does like traveling tours. And one of the things, uh, one of the things successful comedians do, right, is they have a list of jokes, but they play them and they see which jokes get the most laughs and which don't. And the ones that don't get cut from the routine, and the ones that do get retold. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing as a leadership in a leadership role. You got different things you're going to try. The ones you see success with, you move forward with. The ones that you don't see success with, you just pull that aside and you don't do it again because it's not gonna work,
Yeah.
right? Um, and that's how you keep getting that's how you find your rhythm. That's how you find your pacing. What the process that's gonna work. But it's just easier to have somebody there, not guiding your hand, not holding your hand, right? But speaking on your behalf, and that alone, that's kind of like having a customer that was referred to you by one of your clients. You're not selling at that point
Right.
because they like what they got. So they told this person to go see you to get taken
Right.
care of. Boom.
Yeah,
Same.
it's definitely a little different, man. Managing salespeople, and it's funny that I'm just now realizing this, but when you manage salespeople and you're listening to their interactions, you notice that they tell the same break the ice quote over and over and over again, right? Because they're trying to get that engagement, and I'm trying to think of some of the ones that I've heard over my time of being just around salespeople or coaching salespeople, but it's just like the same joke, like they say the same thing, and as a co-salesman or as a manager, you don't want to steal their line, but man, it works every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those and it goes back to it's not always going to work, but it's going to, on the instances it does work, it's going to give you an edge.
Yeah.
And like with me, I never taught my team to make a joke off the bat, right? I would tell them to break the ice, introduce themselves, and try to grab the customer's attention. And it was always the same thing. It's like, listen, in this world, when you try to, greet somebody, the first thing out of their mouth, like 90% guaranteed, is, oh no, I'm fine. Oh no, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
And you should not leave it at that. Your follow-up question, as soon as they say that, it's like, oh, okay, cool. What are you looking for? Right? Something real quick to the point that they just brought up. And that alone is going to break them out of it. So it's called a heuristic, right? And it's a psychological term. It's essentially a process you develop where you don't think about it. It's just almost like autopilot. Because we've all been there. We've all walked into a location. We don't want to get hassled. We don't want to get anything. It's like we want to be in and out. But we go in thinking like, okay, we know this place like the back of our hands. And then honestly, you don't work there every day, so you don't know the place.
Mm-hmm.
But by throwing something else out there, it actually breaks you out of that heuristic. It breaks you out of that routine, and it brings you back into the present. And that's how a lot of my salespeople see their first bit of success, because they go from being ignored when they're talking or trying to grab somebody's attention to all of a sudden, oh, I got somebody's attention. Let me see how I can actually step in to assist. Let me see how I can step in to actually help out and be part of the interaction.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, but honestly, in this day and age, man, you know what? If somebody's coming to your place of business, right? Nobody's there just to look anymore. Because we have the internet. There's a whole bunch of research that you can do online.
Yep.
there's no reason really for anybody just to go in and kind of just waste their time, right? And just quote unquote look, right? So for somebody just to say, I'm just looking or I don't need any help, while that may be true that they are just looking, what are they looking at? You know what I mean? Like what are they here for? Like what is it they want to see? Because I can help you see that, right? And as a salesperson, sometimes that person may just be looking and may not be purchasing, right? At that point in time. But you create that relationship. And it's the same thing that goes with salespeople, man. If you're a manager, like, and you ask a question, you say, hey, is there anything that you need help with? It's the same thing, like as a salesperson, you're like, no, I'm good. Like, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need any help. Right. But it's your job as a leader to kind of break that ice and get past that initial response so that you can help generate a conversation around some of the things that they may be lacking in or they may even be doing well in, right? It doesn't have to be a conversation about what they're doing bad in, right? It could be something as that they're good in.
Oh yeah, man. And going back to like the sales part, for all you guys listening out there, big ticket items, you can look online all you want. People still want somebody to work with throughout a process for big ticket items because they understand what the life is like. And I guarantee you, you're not dropping 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on average, sight unseen, not talking to somebody. You want to talk with somebody before you start pumping in that much money into something. Right. But yeah, man, it's having one like a process makes things easy, and building, how can I word this? I guess rapport is going to be like the biggest thing, and building that rapport is a two-way street, not just with your customers, but with your people, your team. And you just got to be able to do that and have like a way to move forward, right? Because at the end of the day, think of like what you were saying, right? Where it took you a while, and I guarantee you probably bumped heads, right? When you took over that team and you had that leader that you could have like essentially fallen back to get that influence to speak on your behalf, to make things go a little bit smoother, where, okay, maybe you want to try something different, right? Because you can see how it can work, but it's not going to work without your team's support. But they don't want to do it because it's against what they've done or they're not comfortable with it. And instead of like trying to use your resources, you're like, man, how can I get this done myself? And it's like, as a leader, your biggest thing is learning how to use your resources. Like it's no longer you yourself, it's your resources that will help you out tremendously. And your resources can be other leaders, can be, peers, not your direct leaders, could be, auxiliary leaders, and it could also be your own team.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the one follower rule? On next podcast, I'm going to find that video. We'll start off the meeting with that one, right?
Okay.
But it was something I was introduced through one of my leaders in a previous organization, and it's a TED Talk. It's a really short TED Talk, and what it is, it's a video of a guy at a music festival that's a crazy dancer on a hillside. And the guy that's introducing the TED Talk is introducing a concept of the first follower, how the first follower is a form of leadership that's not widely recognized, because even though you as a leader are going to be recognized for creating that movement, unless you have a follower, you are a lone crazy nut in the world. Right. And once you get that first follower is now going to bring others on board and is also going to help them, show them what to do. And after you get the first follower, you're going to start getting a couple others, and then you're going to get that mass movement, and then you're going to have the trailing people at the end. And it's the same thing with your team. Once you have that first follower on your team to do things kind of the way you're looking for, it makes it easier to get everybody else on board. And at that point, you're going to have most of the team on board, and you might have a few stragglers, and they have the choice of I can join or I can find my way out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that makes too much sense, man. I mean, honestly, like if you're over here and you're going to be a manager or a leader, but there's nobody following you, there's who are you influencing at that point? You know what I mean? Like, now that I think about it, I'm just like, yeah, man, that's like as a leader or new leader, you find this person that you gravitate to, right? Which essentially is the person that you have more influence over, but also they have influence over you and how you're going to be implementing certain processes and things like that, right? You
Oh
know,
yeah.
so that one person, if it's working with that one person, it may spread to the other people, but it's absolutely true, man. It's like, okay, so you get that one person and then you build your essentially your circle right around that person, and that will be your circle of influence that kind of spreads out to the team, right?
Yep.
And we always hear it all the time, man. Like we hear about how negativity spreads, but also that's how positive leadership spreads. It starts with one person, right? And
Oh
it's
yeah.
more powerful, I feel, than negativity, right? Because there's a lot of results that come from positivity, right? Whether it's sales results or just really we talk about just overall happiness at the workplace. That it spreads from positivity, and then that leads to other things like positive results and positive growth and things like that. So I think it's too easy, man. It's too easy. That's awesome.
Leadership doesn't have to be difficult. It's
Yeah.
one of those where even sales, it doesn't have to be difficult. The My favorite quote, like one of my personal quotes that I've made, right, is when somebody comes to me and saying it's difficult, it's like, no, 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 change your mindset. It's not difficult. It's easy. It just requires work.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the difficult thing for people is to do the work, is to get started. And once you get started, oh snap, this is super easy. It's like you think it's this big old unmountable like hill or mountain, and once you start like taking the first couple of steps, you're like, this is actually not that bad. It just looks intimidating, but it's actually super easy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, man. So I kind of approach things in a different way, man. I'm like, man, that looks super hard, but I can do that, like, and of course, like I go through my phases. Sometimes I may think that I don't do it, but once I change my mindset, I'm like, I can do it, but it's going to be tough. And when I look at something that is tough, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to let that get the better of me. I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to plan out the best that I can. Probably do a little bit of over planning, right? But
Yeah.
um, like that's the way that I look at it. I'm like, man, that's tough, but I did it. Like this is where I've got to. And even if I got 5 steps ahead of where I was, I am super excited that I'm making the progress, at least some progress towards my goal.
No, big time. And to your point, right? It's like that getting started. It's that's everybody's thing. And once you get going, it's super easy. And this is a thing where a lot of people kind of get stuck up on, right? It's you get going, but you don't realize you're not going in the right direction,
Hmm.
right? You have to have checkpoints as to what success is going to look like and what it doesn't. And if you start noticing that it's going in the direction that it shouldn't go, you have to have a check-in, and it could be with yourself, it could be with another leader, it could be with your team, right? To change your ways, change the path to try to get on the right direction of where you need to go,
Right.
right? But it's all a mindset thing. If you just got to go in, and if you can come in with the right mindset, that's honestly 90% of the job, because that'll put you in things like not just people mindset where you're taking care of your team, wanting to have them have that success that you want, but also get you to like manage your time better. And as a leader, man, that's probably like first starting off, not knowing how to like schedule your day is like the worst thing that you could do for yourself. Because personally me, I don't understand why sales organizations, right? Whether you're retail or other, why sales organizations do meetings on Saturdays and Sundays for admin stuff. Like, I get it. You got fast coverage in most locations on those days. That is literally the worst day because your attention should be on driving sales and moving the team forward, right? Not spending, 2 to 4 hours those days taking care of admin stuff. Like,
I mean, so I completely agree, man. Especially when, like, I've been part of organizations where, Saturdays and Sundays are big sales days, right? And then they want to do and I understand, yes, like, hey, most of the people are working on Saturday, so let's have a meeting, right? Like, oh, okay, so you want to make our longest day and our most impactful day the longest day for your employees? Like, sometimes that's not the best approach. I mean, like I said, maybe not everybody's available throughout the week, and that's part of the problem. But like, you come up with a different cascade. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to get that information to them? And maybe next time they'll be there and somebody else won't be there. Like,
yeah,
you get, it's gotta be a give and take. But you talk about like the most important things that you should be doing as a leader. Most likely should be spending time with your people, getting to know your people. You know what I mean? I think, we talk about, finding that first follower. I think part of it is also finding that first success, right?
yeah.
Together as a team, with a partnership, like you and that person, you're, like, just finding that first step forward as a team that you can show the team, hey, look, we're here to succeed together as a team. Here's what I can bring to you. And, I think that also says a lot, trying to find that first success.
Yeah, man. And remember that we were talking about like being 1% better, how like statistically it's not 300% better, it's like 1,000 times better, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. Once you start finding those quick first successes, they don't have to be a big success. It's like, to give you an example, one of the first things I started doing, and it's something I've done with all my teams, is I've got them comfortable making outbound calls to existing and new clientele to try to bring business in that wouldn't typically come in, right? And it was always the hardest thing for everybody. And I'm not gonna lie, like, looking at a phone and man, I gotta start dialing. Like, it's a hard frog to swallow because nobody wants to do it, right? And I'm talking from like a personal perspective. Nobody wants to do it, but I would break it down. I'd be like, all right, guys, I'm not expecting you to do like 60 plus calls a day. I want you to do 5 calls a day, and that's where we'll leave it at. Okay. I want you to jot down the information. I want you to jot down who you talk with. If they're interested, yes, no. If they didn't answer, okay, cool. Say you left a voicemail, and in the voicemail, explain why you were calling. And I would give them a small script, right? And I told them, I was like, here's the thing. Probably like 80 to 90% of the people you call on aren't going to answer because they don't recognize the phone. I don't know about you. I don't answer phone numbers I don't recognize because I'm not in that business to get phone calls to my phone, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm expecting it because I requested it.
Right.
And it was one of those where I would show them and I would do it myself. And I would show them that quick success where I would just do 5 calls and it literally would take less than 10 minutes, right? It's like boom, 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 boom. So I'm all right, cool. These 5 people didn't answer. You heard what I said? They're like, yeah. I was like, here's exactly what I said. There's a script I used. Learn it and personalize it with your words. I don't want you to sound like a robot. I want to sound like this is coming from you. So this is kind of the framework, but I want you to personalize it in your voice and you'll go from there. And then that one time I would get a client or somebody on the phone, I'd explain it and I would show them both, right? Because I would have the one where, okay, they answered and they weren't interested. Cool. I would show them it's not this person on the other line, like screaming in my ear, like, why do you blah, 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 right? It was pleasantry, cool, conversation over. And like, well, that wasn't that bad. And then I would show them one where I actually got them to say yes to, and they wanted to come in, make an appointment, and take a look and see what we can do for them.
Yeah.
Boom. And once you show that quick success, you turn it over and you have them on that same dime, be like, okay, these are the calls I make. So they're not going to count as your 5. I
Yeah.
want you to, I want to be here. I want to see you. That way we can work with it. It's okay to be nervous. And you're telling them it's okay to not want to do this. It's okay to feel, weird doing it. And it's okay to be nervous. So like, all right, I saw you do it. Let me try it. And once they get over that first hump, it's like, boom, cool. And once they get that first person that says yes, they will literally dial 30, 60, 100 times just to get a couple of people to say yes.
Yep.
Because they got nothing else going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
I mean, honestly, man, it's at that point, what you're telling me is that you're kind of like breeding a need for a positive outcome. You know what I mean? So essentially, what you're setting these guys up to say, hey, look, you got to get to this point to have a conversation. And then it's kind of like when they have those few positive conversations, like, oh, I want more. Like, oh, that's not so bad. Like, but I want more. Like, let's keep going until I can get a positive outcome, right? And honestly, like one of the things I used to coach to was, I'm not really concerned about the outcome of the call right now. I'm concerned about like, hey, look, have a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, get past the point of awkwardness. You know what I mean? Like, have a targeted conversation around what we can offer, right? Like, talk about thank them for the relationship. You know what I mean? Like, make some of those calls that are just thanking, or it's not even a sales call. It's just, hey, look, reach out and kind of like, sometimes conversations may not go the way that you can, like maybe they're in the middle of a football game or something, like you can have a sales call at that point, but you have to be able to analyze that situation. First of all, you have to understand the situation, and then maybe, just take a different approach. Hey, this is so and so from ABC Business. I want to make sure that we're thanking you for your business and relationship for so many years. When you have some time, we'd like to talk about maybe growing your relationship or bettering, where you're at right now, and just kind of leave it at that. That's it. Like, that's so simple, right? And like I said, not everybody is in a time where they can listen to your whole spill at that point in time. Make an appointment, whatever the case is, but make it a conversation, a positive conversation.
Yeah, I used to have my guys calling on a service because the industry I was at that point, there were certain things, so I couldn't just have them call for checking accounts, things like that. They would call for a service call, and I would tell them, okay, you do that, and then you flip the script and be like, okay, cool, you don't have any questions, and if you do, let me see what I can do to help answer it. If and the other thing was like, yes, I can help. What time would you like to come in?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if they didn't have any questions, all right, cool. Oh, by the way, you also may qualify for this, and this. Did you want to see if you could take advantage of it? Yeah. All right, cool. When can I get you? What schedule? Right. They would schedule something out. What's your schedule look like? When can we get you in for an appointment?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got the team more excited, right? Those small little wins, because now, all right, I can go 30, 40 minutes without seeing somebody, or I can spend, a quick 5, 10 minutes, make a couple of calls, and potentially lock in an appointment to come in sometime this weekend, right? But that goes back to, as a leader, you have to be able to have time to do that, and you have to be able to structure your day in a way that makes sense for you to be able to do that kind of stuff. And I know we're not going to have enough time on today's call for this, because I think we got like about 5 minutes left, right? But yeah, the whole time management thing, if you're a leader or if you're looking into leadership and you're hung up on time management because you always feel that you're coming up against the clock, you don't have enough time, time's running out, you always feel rushed. Yeah, it could be your industry. It could also be your time management skills, right? Because there's certain things you want done by a certain point of the day so that you can focus on other things that are more important. Be able to like delegate other stuff. My camera just went off, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Then you have to be able to like learn to manage that and learn to, table certain things for another day that really are not that important. Right. And
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. Like in anything when it comes to sales, we never have enough customers, right? And that's always the case, right? Because you have to have a customer to be able to take that one step forward towards your goals, right? But being able to plan ahead and kind of control your own destiny, right, it really comes down to time management, because if you're not taking the time to plan out your day of how I'm going to impact my days coming next, right? Then you're gonna let time happen to yourself, right? And when that happens, you're not in control. Basically the customers that are walking in the door, maybe not, are in control, right? And you're at the mercy of what's going to happen. So control your own destiny, make that plan. Be a pro at time management, man. And you got to get a little bit better every day.
So I got a question for you, Joey. Do you have like a I guess a pattern, not necessarily like a schedule, because you can have a schedule, but is there a certain way that you like attack? And this is just kind of like setting up for the next podcast, right? So for y'all watching, we're going to talk time management's going to be a conversation for us next time around. But do you have something like that that you use, or like anything that's helped you with your time management stuff?
Man, I'll tell you. So one of the things that starts off my day is I always have to look at my previous day, right? And see what I accomplished the previous day and figure out how I'm going to take whatever didn't get done yesterday and fit that into the first maybe quarter or half of my day, man. And I think that's made a huge impact on making sure I don't fall behind the ball and getting things done. And I feel like that's the biggest impact I've had on my time management and being a leader, man. I think it's awesome. So that's really how I start my day.
Yeah, because guys, as a leader, if you don't have to take that work home and you can feel comfortable that things are going to get done, boom. But your first thing, man, is that time management. You got to learn how to structure your day in the way that makes sense. I know from personal experience, it's helped me, right? Because once you have to bring work home, or if you have to keep going back in on days that you want to take off to get stuff done, it defeats the purpose of being a leader, because now you're just another worker.
Right.
And that's, once you can do that, you can spend time to better train and coach your team. You can spend time to go after other initiatives that you want to do, because now you actually have found the time set aside,
right,
to be able to teach that to either your leaders in your team or to your team directly. So it's all the little tidbits, but this is kind of like a cornerstone. So this is like one of those cornerstone skills. If you can develop this, it'll make everything else much easier, because you can build off of it.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Joey. So thanks once again for jumping on. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. All these conversations are awesome, man. Like I said, it's also motivation for the different things I'm going through, in my day in and day outs, right? So I think it's awesome, man. Just put some focus to it. So hopefully we're impacting some people's days, and months, weeks, years, however you want to look at it, man.
All right, guys. Leave some comments. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Later.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.